The next topic is promises. This is an important concept in asynchronous programming. So we will see what is promises, what are the states of promises. Then we will write a code to see how promises is behaving in the sequential execution as a asynchronous part of the programming. So there are many scenarios where the main code has to wait for a long time to complete, then to execute the rest of the code, like API request, file reading, timers. So API request usually take more time if the data is huge. In that scenarios, the main code has to wait until this long running task has to be completed. How this can be addressed? Asynchronous programming allows us to run this long running task to run at the background while continuing the rest of the code execution. So promises plays a major role in this. So promises is nothing but an object that represents either completion or failure of the asynchronous task. So asynchronous task is nothing but a task that is running at the background, and main code will not be disturbed. The main code will keep on running simultaneously. There are three states of promises. Either the promise is pending, which is yet to run, or it is running. Fulfilled, which is successful completion of the promise, or rejected. Promise is rejected. We will see an example with the code. So let's create a promise code. It is an object, new promise of. It has two states, resolve comma reject. Right. So inside that promise, I'm just declaring a variable. So instead of this success equal to true, imagine our main code logic that is responsible for the long running task has to be here. If success else, so reject here, reject of task failed. So this is the simple promise object. It should have two states, one is resolve and reject. If we have just given a boolean variable to simplify the code execution, but imagine we will have the long running task here. As a result of this long running task, it should be either success or failure. If it is success, then it should be resolved. If it is failure, then it should reject. Okay. If we run this code, we will see no output because it is created, that's all, but it is not executed. See, now I will have to call this promise and handle that in order to execute it. My promise dot, how are we going to handle this result of the promise? It can be handled using then, catch, and finally. Promise dot then, which means if the promise is successful, it should come inside this then block, or if it is some failure, it will come inside this catch block. Irrespective of either success or failure, it will enter finally block also. We will write just an arrow function to demonstrate it. Catch error, arrow function, console log, we are printing that error, and finally promise is completed, but it will not, I mean, this finally block will not ensure whether it is success or failure. It will ensure only it is completed, but this then block ensures that the promise is successful, and if the function, I mean, if the control enters the catch block, then it is failure. So now if we run the code, since we have added the success is true, it will enter this then block. See, the task is completed and task completed and promise is completed, which means promise is called, and since it is success, resolve is called, task completed is printed, and then finally block enters, promise is completed.